One gentleman told me that in his department, their head of department was getting on their case because they were recommending ketogenic diets, meat-based, high-fat ketogenic diets to their patients. And they're like, how can you do that? How can you do that? That's, it's against all the guidelines, against this, it's against that. I said, look, this is evidence-based medicine. The guidelines are against the evidence. And so I'm doing this and this is helping people. And his head of department said to him, like, well, I don't practice evidence-based medicine. I practice guideline-based medicine, as if that was, some sort of redeemable quality, as opposed to just a cop-out and a measure to protect themselves from being sued, but knowingly not doing the right thing. Welcome to the Plant-Free MD podcast with Dr. Anthony Chaffee, where we discuss diet and nutrition and how this affects health and chronic disease, and show you how you can use this to optimize your health and happiness, both mentally and physically. All right, hello everyone. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Plant-Free MD podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Anthony Chaffee, and today I have a very special guest, Sami, who has a very interesting and compelling story to tell us about her journey with health and the carnivore diet. Sami, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much for having on your show. I'm super excited to share all of my story with you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, for those who haven't come across you, I know you've been on a couple other podcasts before, but for those who haven't seen before, can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure. Hello, everybody. I'm Sami from Japan. I have an intriguing, interesting cancer story to share with you today. My story starts from my early life or veganism life. At the age 6, when I became a vegan, not because I wanted to save the planet or thinking about the animal rights. That's because of the fact that I had a lot of skin issues going on. And then one day we went to a dermatologist. She decided that the reason I had a skin issue was I was eating animal flesh. Since then, I became a strict vegan kid, malnourished. By the way, I was born in 1972. I was raised by a single mom. At that time, I think my mom couldn't figure out how to raise fatherless child. So at the age 4, she decided to take on night job. Night job, I mean the night shift job. She would leave our place 3 p.m. and she would come back until next day, meaning that I have zero caretaker, zero observation at already 4. Being extremely lonely and malnourishment. And the thing is that she left abundance of food. Because of I'm vegan, that she left the food was carbohydrate. You see, being extremely lonely, abundance of carbohydrate, and then malnourishment. These are the perfect recipe for eating disorders. Yes. At 15 years old, I developed a severe eating disorder. That lasted 24 years. One day I went to the psychiatrist, despite the fact that that guy, the psychiatrist, had published several books. They are all about mental health, but he didn't know anything about bulimia, which I was. He knew little about anorexic conditions. So I was given the diagnosis as pathologic lying. The person cannot help lying, telling a lie. Also, he thought that I'm telling a lie, cannot stop eating. So I was given 17 psychiatric medicines a day. Tranquilizer, stabilizer, antidepressant, sleeping pills, and all of that stuff. None of those things helped, of course. But the thing is that as a purging behavior, I developed, which was life-threatening, 2 life-threatening purging behaviors. One was self-vomiting, self-induced vomiting stuff. I did that every day, twice a day. Sometimes I cut the throat or esophagus deeply, ashamed. I wanted to kill myself. Another one, which led to my cancer, taking a laxative. I wanted to get things out. the laxative abuse became so intensified to the point that I took the laxative 250 tablets a day for decades.
Wow.
I know.
Yeah.
So intense. And at that time, my diet was 3 to 5 buckets of fruits and vegetables and carbohydrate. The thing is that the fact that why I got the cancer. This is about the question I keep getting asked is that prolonged exposure to insult from the laxative abuse to my colon and fibrous food for 25 years. No doubt about that. Human being, we are very, very capable of taking care of big bout of acute stress. Being cut or even deadlifting hundreds and hundreds of pounds. You do. It's a very, very big stress. But your body somewhat, of course, you have inflammation going on, but later on, you will recover from the big bout of stress. But for me, majority of, I think, cancer patients, they have a long-lasting, prolonged, exposure to like insult or inflammation. These are the things that are becoming cancerous. But anyway, I just talked about why I got the cancer. And fast forward, the thing is that because of my, prolonged life-threatening purging behavior, I stopped socializing at home. I knew no doctor helped me. So I took a correspondence course in biology, biochemistry, toxicology, and pharmacology, all to help myself. And that's why 2017, I came across the literature, which was all about ketogenic diet. Ketogenic diet originally designed for kids with epilepsy. Interesting though is that I was given anti-seizure drugs for eating disorders. I don't know how it works, but anyway, I had given. Then I thought, ketogenic diet has anti-seizure effect. It might work. And I tried that. Guess what? It worked. Prolonged, the crazy eating disorder resolved.
Nice.
But the thing is that, yes, it's great. The keto solved psychiatric conditions, but the keto couldn't solve my GI problem, bloating, pain, constipation, all of that. But luckily, 2018, finally, I came across carnivore diet, embraced it. This was a true game changer. And I only ate beef, fatty beef. I nailed it. There are, I think, 3 benefits I got from the carnivore diet. Number one, a benefit was bloating resolved. Bloating completely went away. Even day one, carnivore diet, it was the first time for me to see my tummy flat. It was amazing. Second benefit was energy. Energy went through the roof, obviously. Previously, I was vegan and stuff. My weight was 70 pounds, like 32 kilogram. I'm a 5'2", 156 centimeter. So absolutely daunted, emaciated. But being on a carnivore, I was able to gain my muscle, becoming so strong. Really like to see myself improve at the gym. And the third benefit I got was actually easy intermittent fasting. Already 2017, Dr. Jason Fung, godfather of the fasting, started to talk about, fasting is good, autophagy, whatever. Then I thought, I would try that. I tried that. But one thing I have to mention is that originally I was plant-based ketogenic diet.
Okay. Yeah.
A bunch of like greens and olive oil, a lot of olive oil.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is that my calorie intake when I was a plant-based keto was very, very high. But for me, longer than 14 hours fasting was too much. I couldn't make it. But now, carnivore, everybody knows who are on carnivore, you don't need to count the time, hours to break the fast. It's naturally landing on the maybe 60 to 80s and 90s and somewhere around. Currently, 19 hours is a sweet spot for me. No effort. I would say this is one of the benefits I got from the switching to the carnivore diet from plant-based ketogenic diet. Sounds like oxymoron already. But the thing is that I was really enjoying the recovering from the mental illness and enjoying the becoming strong. But the thing is that my life is getting a little bit twist, where 2020, 21, somewhere around, there are a bunch of publications. They are all about microbiome. Feed your gut with fiber. It sounded so good to me because let's face it, Dr. Chaffee, you don't like vegetables, but I had eaten so many vegetables. That's why I can't help. Sometimes this is one of those things that sometimes female can't help loving the bad guys, knowing that they're not gonna love me back. But I can't help. This is one of those things that sometimes I dream about crunchiness of the cucumbers and bullshit, sorry. And then I incorporated some of the fibrous vegetables into my carnivore diet. Admittedly, almost all gastrointestinal issue made a comeback. But I kept going because, as they say, your gut is going to adjust the fibrous environment. Sounded good to me. I kept going until one day, 2021, April, after eating mushrooms. I know it's a lot of carcinogenic. You already mentioned it. And then meat. I started to notice that there is a dull pain in my stomach, which was intensifying. And next day, I went to the closest clinic. I think they must have found something horrendous bad in my system. Without noticing anything to me, they sent me to the gigantic hospital where they found that I was incubating a very, very, very advanced stage of stage 4 colorectal cancer, metastasis liver and lymph nodes. Yes, I underwent very intensive surgery, and half of the colon was out, mainly ascending colon, and 1/3 of the liver was taken away. 4 lymph nodes were out. For some reason, they removed appendix. Big surgery. And unfortunately, I had to experience complication, and that's needed another surgery. Very, very painful time. And soon after, discharged from the hospital, I started to take on the chemotherapy. Here's the thing. Months 2, what they found was that already there was a new metastasis in my liver. Having a big operation, strong, nasty chemo, then I developed metastasis. I was gaining the understanding of how less effective the modern medicine for cancer approach can be. That was my conclusion. But the thing is that I wasn't so upset about news of new metastasis. Why? Here's the thing. Before I was diagnosed as such, I had known about ketogenic diet for cancer treatment. That I knew doctors didn't know it. That is knowledge is power. I wasn't so depressed. Of course, in pain, you think about your life sucks, but generally, I was rather chilled out. And the thing is, not only than that, but also given the advice from Dr. Seyfried, Boston College, one of the most important, cancer biologists on this planet. Mm-hmm. And according to his theory, not theory, this is a fact that cancer gets fueled by two energy substrate. Dr. Chaffee, you know that, but for the sake of audience, that mainly glucose. And Dr. Seyfried created the GKI, like a crucial number for cancer treatment. GKI number stands for glucose keto index. Cancer thrive on glucose, but cancer is not able to thrive on ketone, but your body is able to, meaning that low glucose in your system and high ketone in your system is perfect for cancer treatment, prevention, management. Given the advice, I was gaining the confidence. Oh, look, what I'm doing is great. Keep going. I was able to achieve the very, very low GKI number quite easily. Mm-hmm. But my cancer journey went in a wrong direction. Mm. Here's the thing. The thing is that I actually 1 year ago, I was on Dr. Sean Baker's show. At the time, I was talking about, hey, look, I'm quite healthy, hitting the gym, hit the PR. I was overconfident. Mm. The true fact is that 3 months before I was on Dr. Sean Baker's show, I had 2 CT scannings. What they discovered was that I developed new metastasis to my lungs. Mm. It's a big deal, isn't it? Yeah. But the thing is that I wasn't fully aware of, seriousness of metastasis. Maybe 3 reasons. 1, be on a carnivore diet. You are going to be very healthy and strong and happier. So I don't feel like I'm having a really serious stuff going on. Number 2, no symptoms. Still, I went to the gym, lift the weight. I have no symptom. I can do HIIT training, all out training. I can do it. Why bother? Third thing is that I always full of energy. That's why being told, hey, look, your mass or nodule that in your lung is expanding. You're like, I'm all right. I'm on carnivore. Should be all right. I was overconfident. Even on the Dr. Sean Baker's show, I was laughing about my metastasis. But here comes the life-saving event, which was Dr. Sean Baker's show. After airing his show, that's kind of a broad, thousands actually, great, incredible, supportive people in my Instagram channel exploded. And one of my followers, original followers, she's a cancer biologist, Pia. She is kind of helping cancer patient herself. Big shout out to Pia. And then she kept telling me that, hey, Sami, did you check GKI number? Oh, yeah, I did that 1 year ago. It was fantastic. But since then, I hadn't checked that because I was confident. And then since she was persistent, annoyed. But anyway, I checked that. The GKI number at the moment was alarmingly high, incredibly high. Now I realized that I was making a crucial mistakes. I'm going to explain the mistakes later on. Even that being on a carnivore and doing exercise, still you can make mistakes in terms of the cancer treatment, cancer management. I have to say management, not treatment. 3 mistakes. 1 was, as I mentioned, that I was overconfident. I completely forgot about I was cancer patient, which shouldn't be happening. Cancer is no joke, very serious illness. You have to think about all the time to some extent. Number 2, my goal was hypertrophy. I wanted to be big, Dr. Chaffee, like that. So I was, really into fitness. And to achieve hypertrophy, general advice, dietary intervention will be high intake of protein. I was, chugging down the protein shakes and trying to achieve that 200 gram of the protein for my small build person, which was too much. Mistake 3 was that the thing is that if you want to increase the protein intake by eating just beef is pricey, difficult, financially difficult. So I incorporated fish, pork, chicken, eggs into my diet. This is the actually mistake. I'm going to explain later. Now I realize that I have to get the GKI number down. First attempt I did was prolonged intermittent fasting. Already I talked about the fact that it became easy to do longer fasting. But for me, for some reason, if I do beyond 20 hours fasting, I'm going to be cranky, grumpy, lack of motivation, nothing worked. So I gave up. And then what I realized was that when I was able to achieve the low GKI number, I was on the lion diet, only beef diet. Could be the reason. Then I switched back to the, beef only diet. Boom. GKI number plummeted, dropped. Here comes my explanation. I incorporated variety of meat. Here can be the problematic. Let us talk about ruminant animals, the cows and stuff, beef. They have 4 stomach chambers and a unique bacteria. They digest, absorb the food slowly enough to the point that they can detoxify the unwanted substance for us to some extent. Even though in a common practice, the end of their life, they were given the corn and soy and stuff, sprinkling with some of the kind of nasty chemicals and stuff. Still, they can detoxify to some extent. In contrast, monogastric animals, chicken, pork, fish, and eggs and stuff, they are having only one stomach, hence the name of monogastric animals. So what they eat, it's going to reflect on their flesh. That's why in my case, if I eat monogastric animals, the residue of the corn, the soy, the wheat, and GMO, that kind of stuff, it's going to affect me to the point that here's the thing. If you have something kind of you have an inflammatory response to, your body senses as, oh, it's a stressful. Your cortisol goes up. If your cortisol goes up, your liver dumps some glucose goes up, and insulin goes up, and keto goes down. This is that kind of a metabolism cycle. So that's why I think I was not able to produce enough ketone. But at this point, I have to mention this. This is a kind of a geeky part. Majority of people who you get away with eating chicken and, like a pork and fish. I think only people who need to think about this aspect are cancer patients or who are having neurodegenerative diseases, Alzheimer, Parkinson, or autoimmune disease, or severe psychiatric conditions, or severe type 2, advanced type 2 diabetes. These kind of people, we are focused on this aspect rather than that. Oh, my goal is fat loss. Just eat whatever you can have as a carnivore. I think it works. It works. I just wanted to mention because I'm getting asked, so Sami, do we have to, ditch the chicken, the pork? No. You are all right. You're healthy. Go ahead. I just want to mention that. Now, the consequence of eating too much protein, I don't know, it causes gluconeogenesis or too much mTOR. I don't know, maybe too much protein is kind of something that against my treatment, and eating variety of meat. These are the mistake I had to realize. But the thing is that with the knowledge from these kind of mistakes and the achievement I am getting, including I didn't die, I kind of gain knowledge to the point that currently I happily is able to help people with cancer. I kind of made my approach, of course, based on the Dr. Seyfried protocol, and I incorporated the exercise, importance of the exercise, and also sleep and stress management, circadian rhythm, then emotional support. Doctor, I don't have a family to support my cancer. No doctor to support my cancer, but I gained a good community, my tribe on Instagram. I have to kind of give back the I was getting. That's why I'm conducting a free consultant for people who are suffering from cancer. I really appreciate what I'm doing, but I'm able to do.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. How well that's an absolutely amazing story, and there's some really good insights there that I think will help a lot of people, specifically with the red meat only diet having that affect your GKI. I think that's something that not everybody
Yes.
is too aware of, and that's very good to know.
Yes, indeed, indeed. Here's the thing. I always think about the fact that these days, many health influencers or health gurus, they started to talk about high protein, more than better, more high protein, more than. Yes, it's good, it's good. But I think that if you have some conditions, even difficulty of fat loss, or even can't sleep, whatever it is, if you have something in your health wise, at least you have to try ketogenic approach. Yes, high protein. I think Dr. Chaffee or Dr. Sean Baker, the people, these kind of very very healthy people, despite of the really really high protein, you are able to achieve that ketone level very nicely. But other than that, almost 90% people metabolically unhealthy. Just the following the great physics, influencer, sometimes it takes you that wrong direction, in my opinion. How do you think about high protein approach in general to the general population?
Hey everyone, really happy to announce a new sponsor for the show and for everybody down in Australia, Stockman Steaks, who are delivering high quality grass-fed and finished pasture-raised beef and other meats, flash frozen and vacuum sealed to your door, something that I've been enjoying a lot of myself recently as well. They also have a great range of specialty items such as high-fat keto mince and carnivore beef and organs mince with liver, kidneys, and beef heart as well. So use code Chaffee today for a free order of beef mince or another specialty gift along with your order at stockmansteaks.com.au, and I'll see you over there. Thanks, guys. Well, certainly people need more protein than they're eating as an average for the normal person, but the normal person is extremely malnourished. And so as a proportion of your diet, I don't think it needs to be the majority, but it's going to be a lot more than what normal people are eating. But I think you certainly need enough protein. You need enough fat as well, because people don't realize sometimes that fat is not just a calorie source. In fact, I think calories are a bit of the wrong way to describe the energy metabolism in our body. Fat is an essential nutrient. It's actually a cluster of essential nutrients. There are essential fatty acids, which you have to have or you die and you don't have good health. And there are essential fat soluble nutrients that you have to have or you die or have ill health. So you need enough of these things, and the proportion seems to be for us and other animals in the wild about 1 to 2 grams of fat for every 1 gram of protein. So that ends up being, as a proportion of grams, 50% protein to 33% protein. As a proportion of calories, it's much less. If you want to think about things as calories, it's about 70 to 80% calories from fat as opposed to protein. So Again, I think think about things in terms of calories is a bit problematic. There's a lot of things in protein that never get used as calories. They get
No, not
or
a source of energy.
exactly, it gets used as
Yeah.
building blocks, as building material. It builds your body up. Same with fat. A lot of the omega-3s and different sorts of fats are used to build your body and your hormones and things like that with cholesterol. So it's not
Yeah.
as cut and dry as just calories in, calories out. I think that's a bit sophomoric. People don't realize just how much more complicated things are than that. And
Yes. Can I add one thing about fat? The reason I kind of recovered from eating disorder is because of fat.
okay,
Previously, my diet was zero fat diet. Here's the thing. I couldn't control my portion at home. That's why I used to go to McDonald's for lunch because of the financial reason. The McDonald's is the cheapest place to eat something. When there, I ordered a burger and a French fry, some tea. Start from French fry. I pick up the paper napkin. I squeeze crab out of the fat, the French fry, and until there is no stain to be
mhm.
found. And then I ate that almost paper. And next, go burger. I get rid of the pate. Of course, I pick up the paper and I squeeze the burger to death until there is no stain. It's going to show up. And I ate the cardboard. But this is the only way I safely ate. I was able to eat. Imagine my brain has zero available fat. Of course, it's gone mental, literally.
Mm.
And then, even though originally I was plant-based, getting some olive oil, still it's worked. Another thing I'd like to mention about the fat is that frequently I talk about eating disorders.
Mhm.
I'm very knowledgeable about eating disorder and cancer biology, to be exact. And then I am recommending people who are suffering from eating disorder to eat animal fat. Why? Plant oils. Yes, this is something actually very new intervention from in terms of the human history. Maybe 100 years ago, 200 years ago, if you are rich enough, you can hire the servants and maid and people to squeeze the olive oil and get the olive oil. But it is very rare. But animal fat, we relied on animal for millennia since dawn of humanity, which means that your body knows how to utilize, how to digest, how to process, how to utilize everything compared to the very new intervention. That is why, and also satiation I get from animal fat is absolutely helpful for long time satiation. What do you think about it, Dr.
Well,
Chaffee?
no, I think that fat is extremely important, and it's very interesting when I speak to people like such as yourself who had eating disorders and combated them with a carnivore diet, because I see that and I see how that works. But I do wonder about the transition period and how you did that, because like you said, you were squeezing out every ounce of fat, and then you go to, a fairly high fat diet.
Mm,
Because I do talk to some people now who say that, well, look, I've struggled with eating disorders in the past. I'm very nervous about doing a carnivore diet because that seems very restrictive. You get taught in many of these uh, courses, not courses, but counseling sessions for eating disorders, that you shouldn't restrict anything, just eat whatever you want and everything like that. It's just, and I think that may be the wrong approach. I don't know how successful the results are, but you're sort of giving people bad eating habits, and then they're getting bad health outcomes, and they're putting on unhealthy weight, and they don't like that, and so they go back to their
mhm.
old ways again, potentially. And I do see people like yourself who've combated that by going on a high fat meat based diet or a natural diet. And I do think that this was the uptick in eating disorders since the 1970s, when it had a massive increase, was largely in part to vilifying meat and fat, and then that sort of deranged how we ate. And
Agree.
but I do wonder about that transition, and because I want to learn about that a bit more so that I can counsel people, because I can tell them that people have done this and like, well, something happens and they don't feel restricted and you can eat as much as you want. It's just you just don't eat certain things. And
Mhm,
why would you want to eat something that's not food anyway? Why would you want to eat something that's
mhm.
not good for you anyway? So you're
Yeah.
not doing that. You're just eliminating things that are not good for you. You're only eating things that are good for you, and you eat as much as you want. So there's no limitations from that standpoint. But I would love to hear your thoughts on that transition period and how you would
All
counsel
good.
people who are having an eating disorder and then transitioning them over to a carnivore diet.
All right. My transition is actually a long time, not for long time, 1 years or 10 months of plant-based ketogenic diet where zero fat to liters of olive oil, because I was subscribing Dr. Gundry's and
Mm.
Stephen Gundry's and very plant doctors, like
Mm.
plant-based doctors and Mike Hyman's and stuff. I believe that olive oil was game changer. And there is something like it is said that if you increase fat from zero fat diet, you're gonna have a diarrhea, all kind of stuff. But I had to be always constipated. And then even I bumped up the fat or 0 to liters. I didn't experience any diarrhea episode, zero. And then my transition is as smooth as hell. No, no side effect. My body was absolutely waiting for 24 years. But I have heard that many people about maybe gallbladders and haven't got used to the fat. Of course, it's kind of a common sense. You're gonna have to gradually increase the fat intake. But I'm a zero or nothing person, the all or nothing person. I dove into all of the like a spectrum, beyond the spectrum, and reach the high fat zero symptoms. But yeah, another thing though, I was about to say, which my brain is escaping in terms of the fat. Sorry, sorry. I wanted to say something, but my brain hippocampus is a little bit smaller because my brain got stunted from the long time vegan diet. Yeah, there is something. Oh yes, thank you very much. The thing is that people or medicine in general, they assume that uh, eating disorder is mental disorder, something to do with your brain, something to your psychology. Maybe you had a traumatic event in a childhood or PTSD, something in your psychology. It is true. I had that episode. I was extremely lonely, abandoned, and but I would say not all of the people who have had a like a medical like a traumatic events are going to develop eating disorder, but all of the eating disorder patient must have had some of the calorie restriction or excessive calorie expenditure. Here's my belief. Even yourself, Dr. Chaffee, if you skip the meal day or something, intentionally, or you did the exert exercise long time, you will find yourself overeating at the next meal. It's a normal human survival mechanism. Otherwise, you would be dead long time ago. You are expending calorie all the time, restricting your calorie all the time. You have been dead. That's why having a restricted calorie lifestyle long enough, your body or your brain senses as crisis, especially the reptile type of brain that taking care of the survival. Oh shit! It's gonna have a starvation. We're gonna have to give you a ravenous hunger. Find the food. It worked to start the foraging when we were hunter-gatherers. But now, if you have a food-seeking behavior, most likely you're going to get the quick energy source called carbohydrate. That's why, calorie restriction, let's say nutrition deficiency comes first before we're gonna think about, like your mental side. You don't need to think that you mentally went wrong. It's a nutritious deficiency. You have to get it right. Other than that, just going to the psychiatrist and psychologist and taking a cognitive behavioral therapies and mindful eating and meditation ain't gonna work. You have to get the nutrition right, especially animal fat and protein. This is my sort of. I hope that I answered your question.
Yeah, well, I think it's I think that's the biggest hurdle for people, is that mental hurdle, is that if they've struggled with an eating disorder previously, that the thoughts is if you ever do sort of any restriction on what you're eating, then that could lead you down the wrong path again. And I certainly haven't seen that. I certainly have seen a lot of success stories like yours, where people have battled with eating disorders, and then they actually say it's very freeing. They're able to eat as much as they want, and they feel good and they feel great, and they don't have any interest in restricting or purging or anything like that. And so it's just dealing with that mental leap, sort of getting over that thought process of like, ooh, this is going back to restrictive eating, which is, which can be thought of negatively in the sort of the eating disorder world.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Right. Another thing, though, I just to add this topic is that I had a conversation with one of the followers. His nephew was kept in hospital for anorexia, really, really low body weight, and I talked about this passionately, and he goes, "But Sami, the anorexic girl, is getting enough nutrients from the IV dope or some of the food from the hospital in a eating disorder ward." But I told him that the food from the hospital are based on the guideline, not food pyramid anymore. But what I mean, right? Like a carbohydrate loading food, and then that most likely she's given the glucose and vitamin B's and nothing to do with animal fat or animal protein. Of course, she's not gonna go well. But unfortunately, we can't do anything about it because this is the hospital policy.
Yeah.
Do you have some kind of a cognitive resonance to think about hospital food?
Yeah, well, the hospital food is always terrible. Around the world, it's just sugary carbs, sugary carbs, sugary carbs, and this is coming from a lot of the nutritionists and dietitians that are being taught that this is the way to eat. I have no idea why they would look at that and say, "Wow, that looks like a healthy meal," but that seems to be what they're taught.
Is it?
And yeah, and that seems to be what they're taught, and a lot of this stuff is coming directly through from the processed food and sugar companies. They're dictating what's taught in the nutritional programs. They're influencing the guidelines. They're influencing the politicians and bureaucrats who make the guidelines. And that's the thing. Guidelines are people need to understand how guidelines come about before they start blindly following these things, because they're not done by scientists and doctors and the best and the
Yeah,
brightest
you
in the
said
land.
that. Yeah.
They
7-day advantages and stuff.
well, there's that. Yeah, exactly. Well, the Seventh-day Adventists have had a lot of influence, but even just from a political side of things, or just from a just how the structure is, they may ask for people's opinions. They may ask for researchers' opinions, and and who knows who they're going to ask and what their particular complex of
They
interest are.
select the people who are going to tell them that kind of that
There's that.
favorable for their business.
Absolutely. And then on top of that, they may or may not listen to them anyway, because I've spoken to people who have been involved in managing the guidelines and recommending to the guidelines. And they tell me, like, this is what happens. We go there and we give them hundreds of pages, dozens of pages of scientific, journals and literature and recommendations based on these different sorts of pieces of information. and then they go behind closed doors for a couple of weeks and they come out with something very different. And so they may take pieces of that, but they just simply choose what the guidelines are. They don't necessarily base them on anything, any robust evidence or even the recommendations of the experts. So it is purely up to the bureaucrats. It's their political whim as to what the guidelines are. So if you understand that, then you understand that you can't just blindly trust these things. And as doctors, we need to understand that as well, because it's the same way for medical guidelines as well. And it just makes me shiver whenever I hear doctors say, no, you have to follow the guidelines. Guidelines are there. It's a guideline. It's something that if you have no idea what you're doing, you can use this as a guideline to guide you down the path, and at least you won't deviate too far, and you won't hurt too many people, and you're safe, you're protected legally. And so, if you stay within the guidelines, then you're always protected. I did the guidelines and it was the wrong thing and horrible and it killed hundreds of people, but it was the guidelines. So you won't get sued, even if you hurt a lot of people. And so people will tend to do that. But again, it's a guideline. So if you're still learning and you're young and inexperienced in the field, sure, I think it's very appropriate to follow the guidelines. But then you get more experience and you see more and you study more and you learn more and you research more. You realize actually the guidelines aren't perfect. I think this is a better way. And then you start doing those and you might get better results. And you might fly without a parachute a bit because you're going outside of the guidelines. You are really taking your the safety of your medical license and getting sued into your own hands. But that's what you're supposed to do as a professional and an adult. You take responsibility for the decisions that you make and the actions that you take. And so if you think that this is the best thing and you want to apply that to your patients and you're getting good results, then that's what you do. You don't do something that you think is wrong for them just to cover your own ass. That's CYA medicine, cover your ass medicine. I think that's completely wrong. And obviously we're in a very litigious age. And so people feel that they have to do that sometimes, but I think it's completely wrong. I think it's completely unethical. And so if you're starting out and you don't really know what to do, follow the guidelines. That's great. But that's for people that are really inexperienced and don't know better. And when you look at what the guidelines are and how they come about, you understand that these aren't written by doctors and scientists and researchers more often than not. They're written by bureaucrats that say, well, these are the recommendations. They may be influenced by that. They may ask for advice, but they're generally very different from what was actually recommended to them. I've spoken to many people who are involved in that process, and they put in reams of papers saying, hey, this is what we think you should do. This is what we think the recommendations should be. And they come out completely different to that. And I have no idea where these people got this from. And they can have industry influence, they have corporate capture, they can be, just influence from whatever, they may be a politician that's involved in, the corn growing communities in Nebraska. And they're like, well, we need to include, corn and this, that, and the other. We have to make this a recommendation, because that helps their constituents politically. So a lot of these things are politically minded and could be extremely biased for one reason or another, like the Seventh-day Adventists, who have been religiously anti-meat for 150 years. And they have had politicians and bureaucrats and people in the WHO and placed in very high areas and very famous doctors who have subscribed to that. Dr. Gundry, I don't know if he is a Seventh-day Adventist, but I believe he is a professor and works as a cardiothoracic surgeon at Loma Linda Medical Center, which is the Seventh-day Adventist hospital. I believe. I hope I'm not misreporting that, but his involvement with the Seventh-day Adventists, it explains why he wrote a book called The Plant Paradox, because he does feel it's a paradox. He's a very smart man, and he understood and he saw, look, plants have toxins. They don't want you to eat them. These toxins do cause harm. And that's a paradox, because we're supposed to eat plants and plants are so wonderful. It's not a paradox. Plants are toxic. You don't want to eat them. They're not good for you.
More straightforward.
Yeah, it is very straightforward. So, it's not the plant paradox. It's the plant fact. They're toxic,
right? Plant straight.
They don't want you to eat them, which he knows and he understands. But because he comes from that that background, and he's had that influence put upon him, and he believes that meat's not a great idea and you need to eat plants. It's a paradox to him. And so, that has a lot of influence because he has a lot of influence. He has a lot of reach because he is a very smart man. He is very capable, and he has influenced a lot of people and helped a lot of people. It's just that he has these influences on his own way of looking at things as well. So you don't know what people's influences are. You don't know where these recommendations are coming from. And so just blindly trusting the guidelines is problematic, to say the least. And so, I think
Yes.
that it's, and when I hear doctors say, no, you always follow the guidelines, it's just like, well, the guidelines go against the evidence. We're supposed to be evidence-based practitioners. I think if you follow the evidence, everything that I'm doing is evidence-based. And I've had this conversation with people, oh, how can you say it? This is all evidence-based? We practice evidence-based medicine. And I've had people try to challenge me on that. And I show them this and they say, yeah, no, that's correct. You're right. You're following evidence-based medicine. And so, as just because it goes against the guidelines and different recommendations doesn't mean that it's not with the evidence. That's not evidence-based medicine. And if I spoke to a number of doctors who've said that, oh, you only follow the guidelines. I'm like, okay, well, that's you're going to need to grow up eventually, because that's not the right way to go about your practice. And one gentleman told me that in his department, their head of a department was getting on their case because they were recommending ketogenic diets, meat-based, high-fat ketogenic diets to their patients. And then, like, how can you do that? How can you do that? That's, it's against all the guidelines, against this, it's against that. So look, this is evidence-based medicine. The guidelines are against the evidence. And so I'm doing this and this is helping people. And his head of department said to him, like, well, I don't practice evidence-based medicine. I practice guideline-based medicine, as if that was, some sort of redeemable quality, as opposed to just a cop out and a measure to protect themselves from being sued, but knowingly not doing the right thing. Hey guys, just want to take a second to thank our sponsor, Carnivore Bar. I don't promote many products because honestly, all you need to be healthy is to just eat meat. For those times that you're out hiking, road tripping, or stuck at work and you want a nutritious snack that is just meat, fat, and salt if you want it, the Carnivore Bar is a great option. So I like this product not because it's just pure meat, but also because I want the carnivore market to thrive as well. And the more we support meat-only products, the more meat-only products there will be available in the mainstream. So if this sounds like something you'd like to get behind, check it out using my discount code Anthony to get 10% off, which also applies to subscriptions, giving you 25% off total. All right, thanks guys.
Yeah, I think on top of that, this social narrative, they call social engineering, like a Google, the YouTube, the big conglomerates and stuff, they support the plant-based guideline. YouTube からシャドーバンディ me because I'm telling the truth. I'm telling true oncology, and I'm talking about the cancer. Primary cause of the cancer is not the mutation or gene oriented, not gene mutations and stuff. And they kind of tag me, and many video was taken down. Just that they try to control the information, the general big like information, so that even you try to get the truth through internet, you can't.
Yeah,
because of the big power control to follow the guideline.
Yeah, well, that's it. And the thing is that these different people that are in control of how information is disseminated, they have similar influences, and they may not be aware. They may be like those doctors that are like, well, no, hold on, you have to follow the guidelines, and they may not be aware that these guidelines are not as perfect as they may appear to be, and that these people have their own influences, and that they may have looked at the evidence and had these things recommended to them and say, yeah, you know what, but I still think it's over here. It's like, okay, but those end up being the guidelines. And just in the case of cancer and meat causing cancer, the WHO made that recommendation, or made that judgment, passed the judgment saying that processed meat was a known carcinogen, unequivocal, this is a carcinogen. and that red meat is likely a carcinogen. And yet, when you look at the evidence that was presented to them, they had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of studies available to them. They threw out all of them except something in the 30 something studies. They included those. They weren't as high quality. They weren't as good evidence. They were extremely tenuous, weak associative studies.
Yeah.
And they were, as described by other researchers and doctors that were on that panel, they said they were junk studies. They were junk science.
And also they say meat is almost, like the pizza or burger with fries.
Yeah, exactly.
It's categorized as meat consumption.
Exactly. Yeah. So lasagna is classified as
meat.
Things like that.
It's
Yeah,
meat.
exactly. So like you go to McDonald's and you get a hamburger and fries and a soda, right? That's considered meat. None of the other ingredients are considered. It's just that's meat. You eat meat, that's meat. And
Biased.
so, which is just ridiculous. I mean, this is a farce. And so that's what happened with the WHO. And they said this, and there was I can't remember his name. I'll need to look it up again. But it's on Belinda Fettke's talk on Seventh-day Adventists and things like that. She discusses it if people want to look that up. And he said that this was one of the most difficult things that he's ever had to go through in his professional career, because he saw hundreds of really high level studies be thrown out and tossed to the side that showed no association or correlation between meat, and especially red meat, and cancer, in favor of other junk studies that showed an extremely weak, tenuous connection. These were the ones that had pizza and soda things included in the meat side of things. And he said this was garbage. And he said that he's like, hey, you guys are largely vegans and Seventh-day Adventists. Like, you need to declare your bias. You need to put that in this study. And they refused. And so he came out subsequently and publicly stated that. And then the University of Washington published a very large study and statistical review looking at all the just the entire body of studies. There was over 800 studies. They published this, I think, in 2022, showing that the ones that showed that weak connection were the ones, like you're saying, they included pizza and all that sort of stuff. It's nonsense that could maybe contain meat, but weren't exclusively meat. And that's meat. And they had a very weak connection to cancer, and they were very poor, junk, garbage studies, and not scientific at all. And the body of literature that actually had good, robust studies, those were the ones that showed no connection or even protection. And so people improved health outcomes by eating meat. And there are plenty of studies showing that they have improved health outcomes from eating meat. And then you have the garbage trash studies, bought and paid for by the special interest. Coca-Cola, I say this a lot, but it bears repeating indefinitely. Coca-Cola spends 11 times the amount of money each year on nutritional research than the NIH. And that's just Coca-Cola. That's not all the other multinational, processed food and sugar companies like Kellogg's, Nestle, Pepsi, General Mills, Post, all these sorts of things. So this is the vast majority of nutritional studies are coming out, are being paid for by the exact people who are selling us the garbage and the filth and the slop that is poisoning us, and saying that their slop is great and that this natural diet that we've been eating for millions of years is horrible. Somehow never caused disease, and
it's
now
it's common sense, right?
Yeah.
Right. We have been evolved by eating meat for millennia. If meat causes cancer, we would have been dead long time ago. We are one of the most successful species because of the meat consumption we discovered from, ice ages, fatty, the megafaunas and stuff. It's a common sense almost.
It's very common sense, and then you get some of these, I think they're very dishonest traders. They're just doing everything they can to try to talk around these things. One would be Simon Hill, who tries to say that, well, just because we've been eating meat for millions of years, and he doesn't deny that. And he doesn't deny that there's plant toxins. He did for a while, but then he read a book and realized that, oh, nope, I sound like an idiot. And and they said, well, but those plant toxins are good toxins. They're good poisons,
Yeah, yeah.
and they're
Homeostasis kind of
hormetic or
stuff.
something like that. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
just like,
yeah.
okay, but which ones? There's a million of them. Which ones are hormetic? Not all toxins have hormesis, have a hormetic benefit, and and that's at a very small dose. So what is that dose? How many milligrams of oxalates do
Not
you need to be
quantified.
hormetic and before you
Mm.
get toxic? And what's the hormetic benefit of eating oxalates or cyanide for that matter? And at what dose, because that matters, because the whole point of
Mm.
hormesis is that it's beneficial in this very, very small
Exact.
plant
Yeah.
range. And then
Hmm.
immediately after that, it becomes toxic.
Hmm.
And so you need to know what that level is. And he will never say that. He just says they're hormetic. They're hormetic. We know they're hormetic because we know plants are good for you and they have toxins, and therefore those toxins are good for you. Well, that's wrong, because they're not good for you. And we
Hmm.
actually have a lot of studies showing that they're not good for you. And we have our own two eyes to show that they're not good for you. But he would say, well, just because we've been eating meat for millions of years and just because we're biologically adapted to it doesn't actually mean it's good for us. It's like, it actually does. That's exactly
Hmm.
what that means.
Yes, yes. That's
That's
why
how
I didn't
biology
die.
works. Yeah, well, that's how
Right.
biology works. It's the
Hmm.
immutable law of adaptation. You adapt to your environment, you adapt to the stresses of your environment, or you go extinct. We did not go extinct. We thrived
Hmm.
more and flourished more than our ancestors ever had previously. And
Hmm.
so, this has to be something that confers a survival advantage by eating just meat. And
Yeah.
so he said, well, but you could still get all these diseases, you still get sick, you still be horrible. As long as you're getting to reproductive age, then it's
Hmm.
fine. It's like, well, so what that says is that he's saying that all these chronic diseases are being caused by eating meat, and that even though we've been eating for millions of years, we would still get these
Yep.
chronic diseases, heart disease, cancer, and diabetes, autoimmune diseases, by eating this meat. And if we're eating exclusively meat, you would imagine there would be a large burden of this. And I
Hmm.
point this out that these people really weren't dying. I never said that. I never said people were dying of cancer. That's exactly what you're saying. That's what
Wow.
that means. You don't even
Mm.
understand what your own argument entails. If
Mm.
you're saying that meat causes these chronic diseases and that we were only eating meat, and that no, but that wasn't healthy. We're all unhealthy. We're still getting these chronic diseases, and we were just dying, in our 30s and 40s, because of the way that we were eating. What were we dying of then? If this causes chronic disease and we were dying young because of chronic disease, that means
Yes.
there's a burden of chronic disease. That means that there's heart disease and cancer and diabetes and all these sorts of things. There's zero evidence for that.
No.
Absolutely zero evidence for that. The evidence actually suggests that it's the exact opposite of that. But
Mm.
they just throw out this
Mm.
conjecture that oh, we were probably just sick and dying, and you point out that there's zero evidence of that. I never said that. I never said that. Yes, that's exactly what you said. That's what your
Yeah.
argument is saying. And
So weak.
I mean, well, that's the thing. It's just like you're not even intelligent enough to understand the logical conclusion of your own argument. So
Mm.
why are you making the argument? I mean, you need to understand what your own words convey, and that's what they are. So they're saying that people were just dying en masse of heart disease and cancers and strokes.
Hmm.
One animal in the wild eating their natural diet gets those sorts of illnesses. None do. No
No.
animals that get
No.
that. The only animals that get these chronic diseases and heart
Hmm.
attacks and diabetes and feline lupus and all these sorts of things are the ones that are not eating their natural diet. Our natural diet, any animal's natural diet, is the thing that they've been eating for
Specific.
millions of years. Exactly, species
Hmm.
specific. And
Mm.
no animal on Earth gets sick, gets these chronic diseases eating their species appropriate diet. None. And
Yeah.
so, I mean,
Yeah.
there are papers talking about, wondering why elephants and whales don't get cancer, because they have so many cells. And
Hmm.
they, the somatic theory of cancer is that you have genetic damage, and eventually that'll just cause these genetic mutations and you'll just get cancer. It's just a matter of time. And
Hmm.
that these have so many cells that there's much more probability that one of those cells is going to turn cancerous and then cause problems, but they just don't get cancer. And it's just like, wow, why is this? Now they figure that they had, 4 times as many copies of, I think it's like DNA polymerase or something, or one of the repair functions of DNA that had more copies of this. So I thought, oh, well, that protects them from the DNA damage.
Hmm.
But what they didn't talk is like, peregrine falcons don't get cancer either. or do penguins
Mhm.
or dolphins or
No.
field mice and things like that. I mean, it's just animals in the wild in general don't get cancer.
Mhm.
Animals in the zoo, when being fed their natural diet, in general don't get cancer. And so it's not just whales, it's not just elephants. They just thought, okay, I get the other ones, they don't have that many cells, but like a whale, they have tons of cells. An elephant, they have tons of cells, and they don't
Mhm.
get cancer. So what's
No.
going on? But failing to recognize that no animals get
Mhm.
cancer
Yeah.
to any
These
to any
days,
point.
I quite recent. I'm sorry, cut you.
No,
Quite recently, I got a cat. A
mhm,
month ago, I got a cat.
mhm,
And the thing is that I went to department store to try to find out what kind of pet food available. What I discovered was that majority of the cats and dog food are not plant-based, full
mhm.
of like a carbohydrate,
Yeah.
like a soy, then corn, then wheat. That is why no wonder these days, pets get cancer, type 2 diabetes, obesity. No wonder because we are feeding the non out of species appropriate diet.
Mhm.
They have
Yeah.
no business. They are obligatory carnivore.
Yeah. Yeah.
It goes
Exactly.
all wrong. Pet industry as well.
Yeah, exactly. And you get people spouting this stuff off, and like honestly, it just gets tiresome even like talking about it with some of them, because you'll say like, this guy Matt Nagra, who's just like all he does is just cherry pick and just try to find little bits of things that are that they can squirrel away, and maybe find one study that says maybe something a little different than what you're talking about. The entire body of information shows the exact opposite of that.
Mm.
But he'll find one thing that says, oh, well, this says slightly different. Okay, we'll look at it, and you'll see that it's completely useless to this argument. One example was they said, well, look at zoo animals. There's this study looked at zoo animals, and they actually do get some of these chronic diseases. They actually do get some cancers, and and the carnivore animals, they actually get slightly more cancers than the other animals. And it's like, okay, were they being fed their natural diet? Oh, well, I mean, presumably. What the
Presumably.
hell are you talking about? Were they
Mhm.
or weren't they? I mean, that's the entire
Mm.
crux of the argument. Not that animals don't get cancer, it's just that animals that eat their natural diet don't get cancer.
Mhm.
And the carnivores, if they're being fed plant-based drivel that they are not adapted for at all, of course they're going to get
No.
cancer at a higher rate. Of course they're going to get the other disease at the higher rate. And if you look at that paper that he put out there, it absolutely does not say anywhere these things are being fed their natural diet at all. And so you have
Mhm.
no idea that
Right.
what they're being fed. So the thing is that you know you can find a study or anything that goes counter to whatever. You can get a study that says anything, but we've demonstrated already that the vast majority of studies being put out there are complete garbage. And so,
Mhm.
it doesn't matter what a study says if it disagrees with reality. And what reality shows is that when animals eat their natural diet, what they've been eating for millions of years since the origin of their species, they are healthier than if they were to eat anything else. And that's all there is to it. And that goes for us as well.
That's by definition what you should be eating. For example, Inuit,
Mhm.
they exclusively eating just meat or fish or something like that. No one gets cancer.
Yeah.
If meat and animal protein causes cancer, they
Mhm.
they would have extincted already long time
That's it.
ago.
Well, we all would be, right?
Oh
And
yeah,
so, yeah.
would be.
And so that's the thing, that those are another dishonest thing that Matt Nagra and Simon Hill will put out there. They'll put out studies from the last 10, 20 years about the Inuit going, oh, well, actually, look, their heart disease rates are actually pretty high and their cancer rates are pretty high. Yeah, idiot, because they're eating the crap that we're eating, right? Look back
These days,
100 years ago, their cancer rates were zero. And then
of
every sort of
course.
20 years, it started just creeping up, creeping up, creeping up. And that's
Mm.
because they were being more incorporated into Western society and eating Western food, drinking alcohol, smoking cigarettes. The average Inuit starts smoking around 8 years old now.
Oh yes,
So,
you
I mean, like, what's
mentioned
that going to do to cancer and
surprised
heart
me.
disease rates,
Yeah.
And so, but even as recently as the 1990s, there were studies showing that the Inuit had very low heart disease rates, even though you're considering as an entire population. So when the studies that isolated the Inuit that were just eating their natural diet, the meat only diet, vanishingly small rates of chronic disease and heart disease. It's only the studies that incorporate all the population of Inuit as an ethnic body in Canada and elsewhere, that you find any burden of disease at all, and now much higher level of disease. And in the 1990s, even looking at the entire population, not just looking at the ethnic body, not the ones living naturally, but the entire ethnic body, they found that their heart disease rates were still much lower than the rest of Canada. And they said, okay, well, we think that this might be a genetic thing they have. And this is an argument that I've heard as well. It's like, why are you comparing us to Inuit? They're specially adapted to living in that environment and surviving on meat. And it's like, no, actually, they are the original. We are the adaptations. Agriculture came next. We've always been eating meat. The ice ages were always a thing that we had to contend with. Our ancestors lived through all these things, just like the Inuit. They're the only ones living in that traditional way. Agriculture is new. That's the addition. So there had to be adjustments to that. We've already been completely predisposed to surviving on meat and surviving in ice ages. But in any case, they showed this genetically in the 1990s. They say, okay, well, maybe they're genetically protected against heart disease and things like that because they have such high risk factors. They smoke, they eat meat, there's just and they eat a lot of fat. And then they found
in extremely harsh condition.
Extremely harsh conditions. And they found that no, actually they have all like basically all the genetic risk factors for heart disease. And yet their rates, even as a body, even the ones living in cities and still, drinking alcohol and eating corn and soy and, Cocoa Puffs and things like that. As a whole body, they still had lower rates of heart disease in the 1990s. And so they said, look, we have no idea. We have no idea what the hell's going on here. Maybe something else going on that protects them, or maybe we don't really understand this as well as we thought we did, or maybe these genetic risk factors aren't actually as cracked what they're cracked up to be. I always say that wrong, and aren't what they're cracked up to be. And so, they didn't think for a second, well, maybe our idea and our theory that fat causes heart disease is wrong. And I think that's exactly what that shows. But then you see dishonest actors like Nagra and Simon. They'll always put out studies that include the entire body of the Inuit population, and they're very recent. So, in the 2000s, their heart disease rates started to come up, even more because they're being more and more incorporated into Western society and eating Western food and getting Western diseases. And I saw a paper in the 2000s saying, everyone talks about how the heart disease rates of Inuit are really low, but is it actually? And get the current numbers with everybody in the cities and all this sort of stuff. And alcoholism obviously is a very big problem in that community as well. And so is processed food. And they said, well, look, their rates are actually, not that good at all at now. But previous decade it was, and the decade before that, and before that, and before that, and before that, it gets better and better and better and better and better. So it's a difference between the ones that are living naturally and eating their super crazy, heart attack diet of a whole bunch of meat and fat, and the ones that are living in cities and even all the sort of heart healthy garbage that we're supposed to eat that is actually damaging your heart. So if you look at the Inuit today, or 100 years ago, or 1,000 years ago, that were only eating meat in their traditional way, next to no chronic disease. This was chronicled in a book by Wilhelm Stefansson. He's a professor at Harvard who lived with the Inuit for 12 years or more, learned their language, learned their culture, and learned about a meat-only diet. Wrote a book called The Fat of the Land as a result of this, where it's like, hey, this is how we're supposed to eat, and this is the healthiest you'll ever be, and here's why. And he also wrote a number of other books, and one was I believe it was called "Is Cancer a Disease of Civilization?"
Yes.
These people in these areas that are only eating meat and living in a traditional lifestyle, they just don't get cancer, and you can see that. I've specifically looked for this. The cancer rates in the Inuit populations over the course of the 20th century, and there are numbers of studies that sort of look at 20-year chunks. And it's just very, very low to non-existent in the early 20th century, and just 20-year chunk by 20-year chunk, it's just slowly increasing as a body of the ethnic population, not the people that are still living a traditional lifestyle. The ones who do that, vanishingly low rates of chronic.
I see. It's obvious.
Yeah, it's
But
dead.
you can't see it. Or they have to ignore it.
Well, that's it. They have to ignore, and they have to try to explain away, and they try to, conflate different things. They have to say, "Oh, well, I have this study from 2015, and it shows the rates of heart disease in Inuits living in Toronto is actually pretty high." I'm like, is that what I asked? Is that what I said? We're talking about the diet. Those people are
Mm.
not doing the diet. So why are you wasting my time? Why are you wasting everyone's time? But that's it. They know what they're doing. This is an
Mm.
ideology for them, and they're trying to make themselves famous. They're trying to sell their books. They're trying to, do whatever. They're just trying to have some sort of impact in their life, and they're just going about it the wrong way. And so they're trying to desperately defend their ideology and defend their position because that's what has gotten them to where they are, and they
It's like
think
a
that that's the way they have to
ideology.
continue.
Yeah, ideology and the business comes first, and the
Mm,
science try to twisting around to support it, even though it doesn't make sense. Still try to sounds like a oh,
yeah,
it is good, plant is good.
yeah.
Inuit is wrong.
Hmm. Well, I think
Try to
that
say
I
that.
think the difference is that these guys don't have real jobs, and it's
Not
just like,
real jobs.
yeah, well, that's it. Well, they've tried to make this their job. They're trying to make their living off of this ideology.
Mm.
And I mean, so that's the thing. So their income is tied up with this ideology, and they have to
Oh yes,
pander to
yes.
this
Mm.
population that's the and group
Yeah.
that have
Same goes
money in their
medicine, is
pocket.
it?
Whereas
Right. Same
was
goes
that
medicine. Exact,
sorry?
same goes medicine.
Yeah,
Business model comes first. And
yeah,
if outside of the business model, you can take it because health insurance company never gonna
yeah.
reimburse the
Mhm.
dietary intervention, the exercise, and life change. No, just got to be surgical, and a drug. They
Yeah,
get money.
yeah. Well, and so the same idea. I mean, the thing is that I didn't do this as a career change. I'm not trying to make this my job. I enjoy my job. I enjoy my work. I've worked very hard to become a
Mm,
doctor and to treat patients and be able to do surgeries and see people
yeah,
in my clinic.
amazing.
And I have no interest in giving that up. That's not why I started doing this. I started doing this because it works. And I see
Mm,
this work with thousands of my patients. See this work with
yeah.
hundreds of thousands and millions of people around the world. And this is something that needs to get out there because it
Mm,
is the robust evidence, the robust science all supports this. And it doesn't matter how brilliant your theory is, and it doesn't matter how smart you are. If it doesn't agree with experiment, it's wrong. And so when you experiment with people, I'd say 60% of the people who follow me in my YouTube channel were former vegans, like yourself. You
oh,
have this,
yes, I
you're
I
trying to
love
be
those.
healthy. Yeah, you're
Okay,
trying to be
yeah.
healthy. You're trying to do the right thing, and you just get
Hmm.
sucked into that web. And then
Right.
all of a sudden your health is getting worse and worse and worse. You're suffering for decades. And then all of a sudden you're like, I need to make a change. And for whatever reason, you sort of try this and you go like, my goodness, I've never felt better in my entire life. My life was a lie.
Mm.
And so you try to change that. I'd say at least 60% of the people that do
Mm.
carnivore now who follow me
I
have been
see.
have
I
been vegan or
see.
vegetarian at one point.
We saw the hell already.
Yeah, exactly. So this
Mm.
works. This is so the experiment is there. You tried plant-based, it sucked. You go meat-based,
Mm.
it's amazing. It's very simple. It doesn't matter what a
Mhm.
study says if the reality is different. And so, these people, they don't have real jobs. They don't do anything except they're influencing, the Lane Nortons and the Simon Hills and
Mhm.
the Matt Nagras of the world. I think Nagra's maybe in practice, but he's certainly really trying to get this going for him.
Mhm. Mhm.
But so these people, they don't really have real jobs. They depend on this and this ideology to
Yeah.
line their pockets. And so like there's not a chance in hell they're going to give this up unless they're
Mm.
forced to, and they're sort of shut out in disgrace. But there's enough. There's a sucker born every minute, so they're not going to have any shortage of people listening to their tripe and their drivel. And just hopefully we can just sort of undo a lot of that damage and get the majority of people understanding that this is crap. But that's the thing, people have real jobs, like I have a real job that I like, so I'm
Yeah.
not depending on this,
Right.
so like I just follow
Mm.
the evidence. I just follow what's there. I see what works for my patients. I try to relay that to people online so that other people can use that to affect their health as well. People like Sean Baker, he was a very, very successful surgeon. Gary Fettke, same thing. Dr. Kiltz, That guy is the
Yeah.
third largest fertility
Mhm.
clinics and practice in America.
Yeah.
This guy is really well off. He does not need
Mm.
any of the YouTube money.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
nothing compared to what his own medical practice provides him. He's
Yeah.
already very, very, very successful. He doesn't need this. We don't need this. We're trying to help people. But the Simon
Mhm.
Hills of the world, the Lane Nortons of the world, this is their job. This is their
Yeah.
business. And if they back down for a second, they think that they're going to lose that business. I think probably if they the vegans go a bit crazy on that, but at the same time, other people are really accepting of those who admit their mistakes and say, okay, now they're actually really trying to do something very sincerely. Like Professor Noakes, he said, hey, you have to have carbs to be an athlete, and then he went, oh my god, I was wrong, and he's trying to
Mm.
do that, and that gives them a lot of integrity. He got a lot of fire for that, but you know what, he's a much more respected individual for doing that, I would say, because he saw that he wasn't doing something quite right, and instead of
Mhm.
just
Right.
driving it into the ground and just retiring without ever addressing that, he said, no, that's the wrong thing. I need people to know this. That takes
Mm.
way more integrity, and people actually respect that.
Yes.
So I'm sure
Yeah.
if they did just say, okay, look, hey guys, I was wrong, I think this is the way, I think people would actually respect that a lot. But unfortunately, I think that their ideology and their pocketbooks are far too tied up in this, that they're unlikely to do that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And they're not
We
the
are
only
very,
ones.
yeah, appreciate that, carnivore doctors are
Mhm.
providing a true information. Actually, I provide the nutrition, and biochemistry, toxicology, pharmacology in my contents. Because of the fact that the reason I wasn't upset, despite of the terminal cancer, was knowledge. Knowledge is power. You kind of provides a very, very useful information on an everyday basis. How many people are saved by your knowledge? We should know things about our body and diet and that stuff. I really appreciate your content and what you are doing.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, well, look, I think it's wonderful, that you were willing to come on. I mean, you had your whole life in that vegan mindset, and and you were able to come out of it, which is very, very brave to do. I mean, that's very difficult when your entire life is like, oh, meat's really bad for
Mm,
me, I need to just eat
yes.
plants. Being able to come out of that, it takes a lot of guts to do that, and then being able to speak out and try to warn other people, saying, hey, don't make my mistakes, I think is very is very commendable. So thank you very much for doing that.
Thank you very much for saying this.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, Sammy, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on. Is there anything
Thank you very
else
much for having me.
You're welcome. Is there anything else you'd like to say, and also please let everyone know where they can find you and follow you online?
Oh yes, thank you very much for giving opportunity to talk about myself. And I'm on Instagram. I'm very active on Instagram. My Instagram handle is Are you Sami? Like, are you Sami? Yes, I am. Are you Sami? And between the underscore you underscore Sami. Find me. As I mentioned, I'm providing true information.
Mhm. And so that's
That is that.
Is it ARE and then YOU, or is it just the letter R underscore the letter U underscore Sammy?
Yeah, yeah, it's just so sorry. Are you Sami? Underscore you underscore Sami.
Okay.
Make sense?
Makes sense. I'll
Sorry,
put
this is
that.
my second language. I'm not,
Yeah, that's
I'm not
okay.
very, describing things.
That's okay. I'll put that in the description anyway, and so
Oh,
people can
thank
just
you.
hit that link and
Find
follow
me.
you there. Perfect. Sammy, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Hopefully we can talk again soon.
Yes, yes, let's do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey guys, thank you very much for taking the time out to listen to what I had to say. If you like it, then please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel and podcast. And if you're on YouTube, then please hit that little bell and subscribe, and that'll let you know anytime I have a new video out, which should be every week, if not more. And if you could share this with your friends, that would help me get the word out and let me know that you like what I'm doing. Thanks again, guys.